Maralyn Bullion. I've lived in Oxford all my life. Ancestors came from North Carolina in 1836 when Oxford was just being settled. And we've sort of been in and out this county and Yellowbush County all my life until after the World War II. And I think Preston goes back even, well, about the same. When did your family come?
Well, they was here right after slavery. Because my father always would tell us about what his father would tell him about. Because my grandfather remembered the day the slavery was over.
Your grandfather what?
My father's father said he remembered. He was about 8 years old.
You've been in this county a long time. Tell them about yourself.
Well, I've been in this county all my life, right here in the town of Oxford. And it's been, went to school here. At the time that I went to school, many, many years ago, they had a little church school. That was out in the county, and you live in the city, you would go to the city school. But the county school would have summer school because that's where the farming was taking place. So therefore, the children would go to school during the summer for 2 months about. Then in the fall, they would stay out of Big Cotton until later. They would go back in the spring.
Okay.
But see, that time, really, the county didn't take care of the school. The people in the church, they would bring the wood and they would have the heaters. They didn't have any type of lighting or heating. So they would have to bring the wood so the teacher would make it there early to make a fire in the stove to kind of warm the room up. That was many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that hadn't been anything good. That was back in the 40s and 50s, so they tell me.
That person had a remarkable family. They were, I believe your father and my grandfather were friends, were it Stanley Bird?
That is correct. My father knew her grandfather.
And your father lived to be, what, how old?
105. That's why you remember so much.
Man, he really was. And I don't know too much about that relationship, but the family's been really, had a good relationship always, as I remember.
Always.
Your mother took such good care of my mother when she was in her older years.
Absolutely.
And you had how many brothers and sisters?
Well, there's 7 of us. I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters.
Yes. And they all did well.
Yeah, they all did well.
And you all raised your nieces.
You got a niece, the one that the Jewish wives?
They've left the names you left me for the moment.
Yes.
Juanita.
Juanita's children, yeah. Juanita had 2 daughters. And one daughter, Jewish wife, she did an undergrad at Ole Miss and she went to law school. And she finished law school at Ole Miss.
So she's still a lawyer in
Jackson. Transfer jurist in Jackson. And now her daughter's a transfer jurist in Jackson. Marge, her daughter, Christina Marge. And they all went to law school at Ole Miss.
One hot summer, Preston and his family used to travel a lot. They came to Washington, D.C. when we were living there. And it was you and your mother and father and the 2 girls.
2 girls.
And it was hot. We lived in a townhouse that had 3 stories and no air conditioning. It was, so they were going to stay with us, but that was just so beastly hot. They stayed in a motel across the river. But we did a lot of sightseeing, didn't we?
A lot of sightseeing.
Just so much fun. I had an old Volkswagen bus that we brought back from Germany, and that was what we traveled in. And they were just over all kinds of people. So we packed them all up and toured the city. It was really a wonderful visit.
Well, actually, 2 days, Yeah, that was back in the late 60s. And so we decided that we wanted to just take a trip with my parents because they had flown to New York, but they hadn't, and so therefore I said, well, I spent 2 weeks on the road. So we left here and drove to Norfolk, Virginia, and spent two days. And then in D.C., you had talked to my mother, so we were going to see you. So we got to D.C., and we had just a wonderful time with you. Just all this size, and matter of fact, we paid for the hotel for the stay.
We couldn't. It was just too hot in our house. Preston had a wonderful mother. Oh, she was such a wonderful woman. And took such good care of my mother. She and my mother were more like best friends than someone who was helping mother. My mother had an old car. She got that old car with Collar Jane, Preston's mother. They'd go to the bread store and go shopping, and it's a wonder they made it back alive. But it was a terrible drive. But they had some good times.
Yeah, like you were saying, they was really just like that friends. They was growing over, and actually they would talk just to be with each other because they go back so far. And going back to the distance we lived from when we were all was children, it was just about a quarter of a mile, So we've always known and you knew your father. I mean your father, and your mother. All it was just they had a relationship that they cared about each other, and that's what we really need, and that's what we need now. They just cared about each other. They help each other. So if we need some help, we know where to go. So you know where to come. And it was quite a few people living like that then. But now you see like people just growing apart.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you have how many brothers? I forgot.
I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters.
Are they all in Chicago or?
Well, Stanley, he stayed in California for a number of years.
What's his name, Stanley?
And so he was one of the brothers that loved to move around, you see. Because he spent 5 years in Africa.
Oh, really?
Right, so he's back now with his family. And so he go back, I guess, twice a year. So I got a chance to go to Africa, going back this year. And so he got a bed and breakfast over there, like in Ghana. So therefore they go over, so we stay in the house, right on the ocean.
Wow.
So they had a trucking company in,
Oh yes.
in Chicago and were very successful.
Yes.
I remember one day I took Mother, I was visiting from D.C., and I took Collar Jane, Preston's mother, home from my mother's house, and we drove up and got in the driveway, and there was this brand spanking new Jaguar car sitting in the driveway. I said, Collar Jane, whose car is that? She said, oh, that's Tommy Jr.'s.
Tommy
The ones that-
yeah.
Beautiful new Jaguar, so they were really a success in the trucking business in Chicago. Anyway, they're all still up there?
They are still out there.
And Preston taught school in
March. Yeah.
How many years?
35 years. That's a lot.
Really. So, but, the family's just, I guess, back as I can remember, the Taylor family and our family were good friends.
Good.
And the Penniman family,
Good family,
they go down the road. Mary claimed she lived to be 114. You think she really did? I think she was that old.
I'm not sure.
But her children did well
Yes,
too.
they did, right. But she lived to be over 100. Yes.
I always heard that my grandfather helped Mary buy that little piece of ground she had down there. She raised those children by herself. she'd get her mule and her plow and go out and just work like a man. And she always had enough to eat, and there were no cows and stock. She'd always save one calf to pay her taxes. So she was a good planner too. And then you have the Rosemary.
Rosemary,
She's a psychologist.
And you remember Rosemary? Now she the one that attended Ole Miss.
I remember her seeing her since she was in college, I think.
Well, she was home, I guess, about a couple of months ago. The next time she come, I'm gonna bring her out
She
there.
comes back, come and visit. It was a good relationship. It was. So, where did you go to college?
I went to Mississippi Industrial in Holly Springs,
Okay.
and then I taught for a number of years, and then I went back to Ole Miss.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
So you got your degree from Ole Miss?
I got the undergrad was Mississippi Industrial College, and the grad was University of Mississippi.
What else do you remember?
Well, I remember the time that we went to D.C. With a group from Marx, a science group, to some meeting, and I called you, and you said, well, I'll be by to pick you all up and carry you by your school. At that time, you were teaching. And we went to your classroom in D.C. A group was from Marx, a group of teachers.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So you remember it better than mine. Remember that.
Oh yeah, we went by the classroom and she carried us out, and we had a nice time. Anytime we would go to Washington at that time, I would try to get in contact with her because,
So before you lived where you live now, were you down in the Burgess area?
No, we was living up near where your parents were living, right down number 6. Right near them, number 6 away. It's out by Stacker Road, now, in that area. From Magnolia, Serena.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, all the, see, that's where they were living, that area, we were living right down from them, right
Okay.
down 6 Road.
There was a road over there that's named for your parents, right?
Yes, Tommy College James Road. That road leading up right by the
Civic Center.
church, It's
Same church.
Yes,
Is that the one that John asked me something about? They just had something going on. They dedicated.
Yeah, dedicated to the cemetery.
Cemetery.
Yes,
That's
about 2 weeks ago.
I'd forgotten that was your church. John asked me if I knew where that church was.
It was a picture in this week, Oxford Eagle, about
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
my parents had.
Okay.
And there was the grandchildren that was standing behind.
Okay. That's what I.
I was born in 1939.
I graduated from University High School in 1940, and the war was going on, of course, in Europe, but we had not entered yet. And but I entered in the fall of 40, and the next year was Pearl Harbor, and I remember the chance to gather everybody in the Fulton Chapel, and we got the sad news that Pearl Harbor had been invaded, and that the war had us involved. But Ole Miss kept going, and most of the men, every day you come to class, and a few more classmates had gone off to war until almost all the able-bodied men were trained, and the student body was almost entirely women and some people who were not physically able to be in the war, in the in service. And the student body dropped to about 700 people. Ole Miss was, of course, in need of more students. The chancellor had gone, Chancellor Butts had gone off to serve in the war, and his predecessor, Dr. Hume, had been chancellor previously, came back to take over Ole Miss. So things were still running pretty normally. The women were beginning to take charge where men had served only. But it was in need of students and was funding. The Ole Miss still had the 2-year medical school, and those students were solid. They were still had not left for the war. They kept studying medicine. Excuse me. And Ole Miss contracted with the military to bring 2 companies of men, and at that time they were all men, to get an engineering degree and serve in service. And these 2 companies came in. This was after I was elected president of the student body, and we had great turmoil for a little while as to whether we would let these students become full-fledged Ole Miss students, or whether they would keep their all their studies and whatnot separate and apart. We agreed to accept them as students, and it worked out really well. We had a normal student body again, no classes with them, but other than that, we had they were free to join our clubs and organizations, and they formed a little band, a dance band, or had stood out dances in the old gym, and things really ran along pretty well. Ole Miss just kept on going, even though the faculty dropped and lots of sort of strange teachers, but they got us through it, and graduated and just like we would have otherwise. The women's dean was Dean Heffley. Miss Heffley was a character. She ruled with an iron hand. I mean, if you were 1 minute late coming in at night, you were punished. I remember, I think this was after I graduated, actually, and we were dating some medical students, and they asked if we'd like to see where they worked on cadavers. Oh, sure, I would like to see that. Start hiking over and up the building where they had their classes. We didn't get very far. The night watchman found us, and man, they hiked us right over to Miss Heffley. And Miss Heffley pointed her, "Maralyn, you know better than that." I'll never forget. I never tried to cross Miss Heffley again. Of the magnolia trees, well, of course, we had was it over 200 men who lost their lives in the war, and their names are on a plaque in the alumni house. But the magnolia trees, it was actually Miss Heffley's idea that they plant a magnolia tree for each man that lost his life in the service. And those are the trees that you see on Magnolia Drive going up from the channel. And they prospered and done well, but there was, they were dedicated the day that Robert Kayott was inaugurated. And it was, there's a plaque to commemorate just across the street from the chapel. And those were a good reminder of what Ole Miss did in the war. Had some very outstanding soldiers and very courageous men. And there were 3 student body presidents prior to me, and I believe all 3 lost their lives in the war. Bush Gerard, Billy Sam, and I can't think of the name for the third one, but anyway, there was 3 that were very outstanding soldiers.
Yes, I was elected in 2001, and I'm still there at the, going on 22 years now. But it's been nice. I've seen a whole lot of changes in the Oxford area, and it's the growth of the city, and it's just been quite a few changes in the last 20 years. And it was just a blessing to be a part of the change. And it's just great to be part of to see this great community grow and change. And it's will always be in, I guess, my mind, because I was born and raised here. And just to see Oxford now and see back in the day and see how all the people at Oxford changed. And Oxford is just a little, it's just, when you go to the meeting, even I just left down on the coast, remember yesterday, coming back, and when they see Oxford, oh, you're from Oxford. And so it's so much respect for this city. And people from all over, even the Jackson area, oh, you're from Oxford, a beautiful town, I would like to move there as a growing city and all that. So it just gives me great pleasure to just be part of it, for so long, and to see the growth of the son.
Preston, you've been here the whole time. I left and came back, but you were here. You see, you know more about the changes in this town than I do.
No, you know more about it.
And also for the African American population, I guess that's the big change that you felt.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just like going back to Oxford. You know, at the time that my parents and I was growing up, see, now we couldn't go to Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi, but it rubbed off on the black community too. To live in a well-educated community, and most at that time they was working on campus at the cafeteria. Mr. Bound was the director of that cafeteria at that time. They was working in the fraternity houses, sorority houses, and they was getting around people with education and with a different outlook on the world, and so it's kind of railed off. And so even the black in this community that could not attend Ole Miss, the school wasn't integrated at that time, but there's always been, when you travel, you had been around people with education and very diverse group, and so it was just, you could see. When I moved to the Delta to start working, there was a difference in that area, because see, come back here, and they said, now, the university's here, and they were working on campus, and I'll never forget, you like setting a table up in the cafeteria. Okay, now in that particular school, they said, well, we're going to have something like a little banquet. And so they didn't really know how to get the table together. But I had worked on campus, and my mother and all had been around, so they we would do that. So I said, well, I know how to do it, put the fork in, I put the tea in it. And they were just surprised, but there was people that had finished college and all of that, but still around here and around the university, it was a different, and still different.
This building was preserved thanks to Jim Pryor and a few other brave souls.
Oh, yes.
That were able to save it from the wrecker's ball. It's been a wonderful addition for the city to have this building and what it can do for the community. So back to your childhood. What was it like for your early childhood schooling? How did you go to school when you were just a little boy?
Well, just a little boy. Where we started at a little school at just west of here. And that's a little school that was having school like this, a time out for the children that work in the field. But that didn't last too long because we was kind of walking distance from our training school. So we would walk from the west end of town back up to our training school. And we would walk through the campus because that was a shortcut. You come out right down here, go down 5th Street, down to the school. So my early days were after down that, but we still had to pick the kite and work in the field. But see, Oxford Training School was starting the day after Labor Day. So therefore, we had to miss some days to help pick the kite and get the corn and the potatoes and get all the work done. And then when it rained, we were going
You got to go to school.
back to school after that. But we didn't have any, my parents, like I said, they worked hard and they just really, they just know how to make things do. They had garden, they had all kinds of vegetables, they had hogs, cows, they had the whole work, so, and they would raise all this food. And so my mother would just give it around in the neighborhood, like the big gardens every year.
Did you know the Charlie Campbell family?
Oh, yeah.
They were another outstanding family, weren't they? He had a little school down on the Burke farm. And he would come by and he and my mother would talk about their teaching experiences. And we lived down on the old Burke farm. So you grew up, but where?
We were just around the Tidwell stove, I was there, they had a Franklin, y'all may remember that, Tidwell. So we was living right behind it, like on that hill from the Franklins.
Uh-huh.
They had a watch out there that they called the lower watch and the upper watch. And it wasn't for us, we had moved up there after we left from New York.
Yes. Parents were school teachers and they taught school and there was a little school named Tallahatchie School that was down off Old Sardis Road. And taught there. I think that was the last place they taught school. Then Daddy got into county, small town politics and was a tax assessor for a while. But before you lived in Lafayette, Yellow Bush County a good bit, taught in Scobie.
Oh.
And I remember Scobie 3 different times. Daddy got out of the war. After the war was World War I, he had a teaching job in the Scobie. It was his first real teaching job, I think. In fact, me and my mother got married while he was teaching at Scobie. And they lived there, and then they taught at some other places, and then bounced back to Scobie. So I went to Oakland High School 2 years, and then University High School 2 years. But that's pretty much where we lived, just here and there. We were really nomads for a while, but just small schools. Dad got his college degree piecemeal. He'd go to summer school and get a few credits, and he'd go take a few correspondence courses, but he was determined to have that college degree. He finally got it, and and he just had these small schools where we taught and lived. But it was a good life. In the summers, we'd usually go back to the farm and have to do the things that farmers do in the summertime. Your gardens and your cows and your pigs and all those things. So it was a good life for me and my 2 brothers. settled down when he got the tax assessor job and lived in Burgess for a short while, and then they built a home out near Waller Funeral Home. That's where I usually grew up for high school and college. We would go into town with Dad every morning and stay on the campus or at his office until the end of the day, come home. It all turned out all right.
And how did you end up in Washington?
Pardon?
How did you end up in Washington, D.C.?
I'm having trouble here.
I'm sorry.
I'll get it for you.
John, you've got.
How did you end up in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, Washington, okay. My husband was military, and we had, after World War II, he got out of service for a while and tried to start a business. It did not work out very well. And so he went back in the service, and we lived in Bismarck, North Dakota, Fort Dix, New Jersey, and Langley Air Force Base, and finally, then he went off to war in Korea. Came back because the general that headed his outfit in Korea was going to France. So we were able to go have an assignment in France and Germany for 4 years, and came back from there, and the assignment was assigned to Washington, D.C. So we lived there for 30 years while the children grew up. We went to Europe with 4 children, came home with 6. So, one child was born in Germany, and one in Paris, France. In France, we lived right a couple of blocks from the Seine River. John had a couple of friends, and they were free just to roam the area. And one day, the mother of one of the little boys came right over to my house and said, "He's in the river, he's in the river." And turns out that one of her little boys had actually fallen in the Seine River. And so fortunately somebody was driving by, saw him, and pulled him out of the river and took him up and took care of him till his mother could be. I came back after my husband died. And after he died, I stayed over in D.C. for a while, and then I would come back to visit, and I realized I wanted to come back home. My mother was getting older and needed help, so I came back in, it was in 1898, because I was 2 years before. So anyway, that's how I got back home. I sold my house in D.C. and built the one out on Highway 6. And it's been a good change for me, good decision. We've had some good times there.
It's quite a story. We would catch the train in Batesville, the city of New Orleans in Illinois. Okay, you would go to Batesville to the station. And at that time, they didn't have a dining car for black, but they had one, for the white. So therefore, when we get on the train in Batesville, the black would go this way, go up near the Union, and then they would go back, for the dining car and all. And you would ride all the way to Chicago. Without, you couldn't buy anything. You couldn't go to the dining car, so you had to carry your food with you. And so we would get on that train about 1 o'clock during the day, and then going up. By the time you get to Champaign or something like, they may start to integrating in coaches, and then you're going into Chicago. You got into Chicago about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night. And we would get off from 63rd Street, near Jackson Park. Everybody knew everything about Chicago. And then the train would go on downtown to Trust Street. And so it was quite a deal on the train, coming back and going. And you couldn't move around that much, because you was up there nailed it together. Sometimes the air conditioner wasn't right, or it was too cold, or too this or too that, but we made it. And that went on until the train was integrated. And then when coming back, when you leave Chicago, you probably would have a mix by the time you get to Champaign again. There was the University of Illinois, so the airport, they had off, and there you go. That's it, all back into basement. But it was, you know, I think about that now, you know, there was a long drive, and they was used to teach folk about frying chicken and taking their lunch and all that with you. But you had to, because you couldn't buy anything on the train, and you were going to be in there 12 hours. And my father used to go to Memphis, because that's where some of his folks had moved to Memphis and all. And so you would have to go to the back of the bus, and then even some vacant seats up front, you had to stay behind, and then the back there, they wouldn't let you come up to the front. Sometimes they might move the little curtain, and you get another seat, and that really happened. See, now, if you really think, that hadn't been that long ago, because I was born in '39, and I remember all of that, and so you know that hadn't been really long. And so I think history is so good, and not that you're going to really get angry or do this or do that. We need to know our history, and we need to build on it. And it's just like they said, well, I don't want to teach this, I teach that, but you have history. You have to teach it and build on it. The same thing about the ruling for the Supreme Court yesterday. All right, you know, you might think that everything's over, everything's this and everything's that, but the ruling this morning about the scholarship, you know, I mean, you give them money, the student loan. See, all this is being rolled back, but see, still, it's a need. It may not be the need they had at first, but it's still a need. And so the Supreme Court now have they still divided. We need to come together. We need to get together and just let live and let live. But it seems like everybody's pulling against each other. Yeah. And so we got you're asking about the Supreme Court is there for a while. They're young people, and so it's there. What are you gonna do? But America now, for the decision they made, they're gonna hurt everybody. Mostly, you might not think it will, but we need to live like we were living back in the day. Live together. Mm-hmm. See, out of our water stove, that's where I was born. That's where they were living. We were living together. We was talking to my parents, and my parents loved this lady, and they loved your mother. She really did. And she was going down, they said, to do some work, but in later years, they were going down to talk as friends. That's what they were doing. Yeah. Right. See, it wasn't doing any work. They would go down there and they would talk and say, you remember you just come home and when you were coming home from D.C., my mother would be down there and you would bring her back home. And she was just down there. You know, they just loved, she loved to go down there. Yeah. And she really did. So, but you didn't ask me about the Supreme Court, but I know.
I'm glad you did this.
I just noticed that when I first went to Mark, you know, you got to fill a paper out and say, you're not a member of the NAACP and all of that, you know, and so they didn't want you to be there, but see, you didn't have to tell the whole truth on that because they weren't really they got that. But the school board had those rules, and then finally, you know, integration. But it wasn't like Oxford. When they integrated schools here, the schools went on, black and white went. But in Mark and some parts of the Delta, they just boycotted the school all together and built those academies, and they're still going. There's one between Marks and Batesville, and then there's one in Mark. So the population of white students in the school system in Mark now could probably not even 1%. It may be 0. They all go
over to the academy.